I'm your host, Mr. U. Thank you for joining us on the All Purpose Pod for an All Purpose Life, wherever you are today and however you're listening to the Call Me Mr. U, the podcast. Thank you for making us a part of your morning, your day, and your week. We your weekly mirror check before you go change the world, baby. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and the Twitter. Download, subscribe to our show wherever you enjoy your podcast. Thank you for taking the time to do both of those. In case you didn't know, we are actually live. They Call Me to You is live every Monday morning at 9 a.m. powered by the Shake Back Media Group. First off, I want to thank Willie and the Shake Back Media team for the opportunity to let me be a part of their family. Maybe we get a chance to say hello at some point in time today. If not, thank you guys so much for allowing us to be a part of this. I'm a little bit nervous, but it's just a brand new area for us. But thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this awesome media group. Love you guys already. And for all of our regular listeners and subscribers, thank you for making Call Me Mr. U a part of your morning, your day, and your week. We appreciate it. We thank you so much for stepping in and supporting us. And continue to subscribe and share us. Go change the world, baby. Well, as we get into our show today, I'll go ahead and get right into it. Our topic today was one that came with a lot of thought and a lot of consideration. Why is that? Everybody knows me that when I talk sports, it's natural. It's a part of me. When I first started to call me Mr. U, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background. We're going into more sports talk now than we ever have before. I'm going to give you the why behind the decision. Most of you guys that hear our show, what you hear is heavy spiritual development. What you hear is heavy entrepreneurship, business and professional tips. You hear things like that. Those are all part of my life, part of my background. It's part of what I do, so it's okay. But one of the things you're going to also hear more about is sports. Why is that important? Because sports is a part of my upbringing, part of my background. It's a part of who I am as a person. The influence of sports on my life is huge. I come from the inner city. Most of you guys know I come from Brooklyn, New York. Don't real borough in New York, but whatever. But I come from the inner city, and the need to belong was a big part of my upbringing. You know, we got a lot of kids that look just like me that didn't have a mother or a father sometimes, in some cases, or one or the other. They didn't have strong role models. They didn't have a lot of self-esteem. It was all built on doing certain things in the community, if you know what I mean, to make you feel like you are somebody or you're valued or you're a part of a group. So there was a lot of things that impacted me in that way. Sports was one of those universal threads that made everybody that kind of come together and recognize that, you know what, through sports, people who look like you and I can accomplish great things. We can be a part of a team and thrive and be a winning part of a winning team. Sports taught me that. So sports sports has a huge impact on my life in that regard. But what is it about sports that makes people who would never even look at each other in social settings become best friends in 3 hours? What is it about sports that makes that happen? I mean, I hear the arguments all the time about sports. Is sports really a mindless exercise? Is it really a waste of time? Or is there a point to sports? Is it really pointless? Or is there a reason why sports can still matter? Does sports actually bridge a gap and fill needs? Or like some may say, some critics may say it's just a waste of time for men to do nothing when they could be doing something else. There's so many stigmas attached to sports. But what I love about sports more than anything is that I get a sense of the camaraderie. I recognize that in that setting, in those 3 hours, there's more unity than there is sometimes in a church setting, sometimes in a family. Sports has that kind of galvanizing quality. And I want to talk about it a little bit because sports does have an amazing quality. Sports can unite. Sports can galvanize. Sports can promote community relations. Sports can influence dreams. Through sports, the my team mentality has the ability to become our team. I've seen so many times in my life. I can be in a sports bar, eating wings, watching sports teams, and guys who would never talk to me on the street, who would never connect with me in any way, are able to say, you know what, we're together. It's just about for 3 hours, but we're together in this moment. We're all shooting for the same goal. We learn each other's names, our kids' names, where we work. We connect in a way that may not have ever happened had it not been for the atmosphere and environment of sports. That's a big part of my life, and I want to include that into our podcast as far as content goes. You're going to see a lot more of that. I'm not getting away from the business aspect, the entrepreneurship, the spiritual development, the life coaching. I'm still going to do that. But we're going to have a lot more sports intermingled and involved into the process. So I hope you can get ready for this and get excited about what you're going to do, because it's going to be a big deal, okay? So what is the stigma on the sports fan? If you tell me right now, even in the comments, what do you see as a stigma for a sports fan? Because there's so many areas where people look at a sports fan and have a negative idea who they are. I mean, some folks out there, if you watch football games, even in the NFL, and you look, well, even in college as well, you see some people in the stands, they'll be bare-chested with paint all over them in different colors and big headdresses and outfits and costumes, and you think these guys got to get a life. where you from? You know, so I understand that it can leave a bad taste in some folks' mouth, but that's not the picture of the sports fan. What's the stigma of a sports fan in your mind? Share with our comments on our YouTube channel, or of course on Facebook, and of course the Twitter page. What's the stigma on the sports fan? Excuse me. What we want to highlight is what's different about sports fans based on what I've experienced, and not so much what we see all the time in the air, what we see around us. Ask yourself this question. Ask yourself this today. Why are we more faithful to sports than we are to people? Why are we more faithful to sports than we are to people? I want to get into it a little bit, because even though I love sports and it matters to me, I understand there's a line that has to be told when it comes to, does that make sense? Hopefully. There's a line that has to be told between our faithfulness to sports and our faithfulness to our commitments in life. I know, me personally, sports can be an escape from the real world. And I know some people may say, oh, that's not realistic. Why do you want to escape? You should be handling it and dealing with it. I deal with all of the real world stuff in front of me. But everybody needs a respite. Everybody needs a break. Everybody needs a so-called escape from the hard things that go on in life. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all about self-care in reality. You got to have that at some point in time. You can't go 100 all the time, because you'll burn out and you lose more time on the back end than you would if you took some time for yourself. So to me, sports kind of represents that escape. I don't really care for the word escape, but for lack of a better word today, if you have a better one, by all means, please share it. But for lack of a better word, sports represents escape, an escape from the real world. I mean, the quarterback, the starting pitcher, the goalie, they don't dictate our reaction, they don't dictate our decisions. That comes from the individual person themselves. And I feel as though we need to be careful when it comes to, and this is probably a different podcast, different topic, but I want to touch on it a little bit today. We need to be really careful about how we look at sports and how we allow sports to affect our character and affect our attitude and how we communicate with other people. You know, this is most of you know, some of you know the story about me and Twitter, a long storied history. When Twitter first came out, I was one of the first people right there, but I couldn't hang. So I left, came back, left again. Now this is my third stint on Twitter. And if you talk to some folks, they'll say Twitter's a cesspool. It's an awful place to be at. I see why they say that. But at the same time, I recognize that social media can be categorized in that same way. Not just Twitter, but Facebook, LinkedIn, and everybody else. Because I see some stuff on there that's like, wow, I can't just got past the gatekeeper. This is actually happening here on my screen, you know? And it's like, what I learned is that a lot of the time, especially in the realm of sports, because that's really heavy on Twitter, it's a big part of my Twitter account is sports. It's 90% of it. But what I found is that people use sports to justify their attitude. That's part of the reason why I think most of you may have an idea of us or stigma about the sports fan. because fan is short for fanatic, right? That's how some people act when it comes to sports. They imagine themselves wearing the jersey. They imagine themselves playing for the team. They imagine themselves as part ownership, as part stakeholder. They imagine themselves as part CEO of the company. But it's all in your imagination. You don't play. You don't hold the purse strings. You don't have anything to do with the team except that you are a fan of the team and you may go to all of the home games during the season. But you're not a part of the team beyond the fan base. And sometimes we get a bit of an attitude about how we deal with this. And I kind of want to touch on just a little tiny bit there because the impact of sports can be galvanizing and can be unifying. I definitely agree with that. At the same time, if we don't look at sports in its proper perspective, we'll think that we are better than somebody else who may have a different team or somebody else who looks at sports differently. We think, oh, I'm a real fan. I'm the real one. The real what? Those things are important because it affects how we communicate. You got to ask yourself, okay, now, are you going to die on that hill that you're a fan of this team and it's going to be your legacy in life? To that degree, sports really isn't that important. A lot of times we find ourselves more faithful to sports than we are to people. Our wives, our husbands, our children. We put sports on a higher priority. That's the problem. In my mind, that's a mistake. As much as I love sports, and I love sports, don't get me wrong. I'm a sports fan. I grew up as an athletic person. I was involved in sports. I was a sports fan to my heart. Since I was in the womb, I was hearing sports sounds. No question about it. When I came out, I was ready for sports. I was ready to throw something, catch something, kick something. I was always ready for that. But sports can be a priority over my marriage. Excuse me. Sports can be a priority over my children. Sports can be a priority over my work, who I am in my community. Does that make sense? We're still talking about sports. I haven't left it, but just the important impact we need to understand, because when sports impacts our lives in that way, that's a problem. We've gone on the other side of the fanaticism, and now we're in a really bad place. Just something to be thinking about. We can yell at the quarterback. Excuse me. You can yell at the starting pitcher. We can shelled in 3 innings. We can yell at the goalie. We can yell at the kicker for missing a game-winning field goal. We can do all of that stuff and kind of put it under the file of being a fan, under fandom. But we need to check our characters to make sure that even in our fandom, we're not crossing that line, because we can't come back once we do that. We can't say sorry to the entire Twitterverse after we said what we said, after we did what we did. You can't throw a rock at somebody in the head and say, sorry about that head wound, and try to take it back. Rock's been thrown. The wound's been made. So just a little tidbit out there for all of our folks, not only on Twitter, but on social media, period. Be careful about how you act in the moment. I did a podcast in our first season of the show, or second season, not quite sure which one. That's how many we've done so far, which is a good thing. But it was about mob mentality. I believe it was season 2. Packed herds. It was about the packs and herd mentality. And you get into that sports arena, you see that. People they're almost hypnotized. They got a energy, a response that it's almost hypnotic. As a matter of fact, great example. When I was living in Tampa, Florida, still a big fan of Big Blue, you know that. Go Giants. We were playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was our first game in the playoffs on a Super Bowl championship run. We were in Tampa, and the fans out there, I mean, we live in Tampa now, so that was kind of, we didn't see this before. I mean, we know people from Tampa, we lived there for a while. But in that stadium, It was a whole different monster. The people in there, they were yelling at my wife and I. I mean, screaming obscenities at us. I'm like, oh, you don't even know me, dude. You don't want to know me going that route. So they would scream obscenities at us and say all manner of things against us. And it was happening all over the stadium. Raymond James was thick with that negative. So everybody that had blue on like I was, like we did, we were getting that heat. Some folks from Tampa was putting that work in. But I brought it up because these are all folks who were fans. They weren't players. They weren't stockholders. They were just fans. Wearing pewter and red. And they felt entitled to say what they said. Treat us the way they treated us. There were so many fights that broke out in Ray J on that day. They didn't come up on the news. Wasn't going to make the news feed. But there was so many people in fights, leaving out on stretchers during the game, before the third quarter, mind you. There was already massive fights the second quarter alone. They were carting people out on ambulances before halftime because we were fighting about what was happening on the field. Just a little glimpse into what sports can do sometimes. I can only imagine how those folks felt riding out on gurneys. I'm like, is what I said and what I've done really that important that I be in this situation right now? Being carved out on a stretcher? Not players, fans who paid to watch their team play. It was amazing. It was so many fights. And most of those fans, they were screaming and hollering, and they were just caught up in the whole energy of Tampa's going to beat New York. And it was just a whole vibe. By the third quarter, most of them had left. They got riled up and so angry and had so much vitriol, and they didn't even stay for the third quarter. You won, by the way, and won the Super Bowl as well. So you're welcome for that. But that's what happens in certain arenas, especially on social media as well. We got to be careful of that. Think before you press send. Do you want folks to know you as that person, as that guy, as that girl, or do you want to be known for somebody who has character and integrity, still of the team, but understands the whole human element? It doesn't make sense to try to destroy each other in the name of sports, if that makes sense. I mean, this certain demographics, and I've heard this before, and I've had the arguments with people, not really arguments, but when I do it, it turns into an argument, because if you say something crazy to me, I'm going to challenge you right away because I want to know why you're saying that. Don't just make random statements. But I've heard many people have an argument with me or a heated discussion about why do we have sports anyway? I mean, yeah, they want to actually have sports abolished. Really? Could you imagine a world without sports in it? I'm trying to put myself in their shoes and wonder what would happen if there was no sports in it. Look at your social media accounts. Imagine if sports was erased. Every sign of it, banned, removed, no sports. Would you have a social media account? What would you talk about? There's people out there, if you know some of those folks, I know a few, that see no value in sports. They don't see any point in it whatsoever. To them, sports is a waste of time. Their husband could be mowing the lawn instead of watching the football game. Their husband could be working on a roof or cleaning out the gutters instead of watching a football game. Those things are still going to get done, but for some reason, some people feel as though sports is an impediment to their life, their family life, their social life. There's certain demographics out there that would like to have sports going forever. Excuse me. They don't mind having their daytime soap operas, though. They go with that, though. From 12:30 to 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They don't mind having their daytime soaps, but sports is the problem. Yeah, I am being shady because it needed to be. But serious question. You can share in our comments if you like. What does a society look like without sports in it? What does a society look like without sports in it? I think the question is deep. Maybe we can't answer it today, but what would it look like to not have sports? I mean, think about the fact that your kids and grandkids, they play sports so they can learn teamwork, self-esteem, camaraderie, learn how to win with grace, learn how to lose with humility. Sports has taught me that over the years. I understand that primarily because of my activity in sports. Sometimes sports is a family event. Going to games where your children or grandchildren may be playing in, or at home watching the Super Bowl or a playoff game in the NBA. Sports has become ingrained in our society, and it has been for longer than most of our critics have been alive. And their parents and grandparents before them, sports was there. What does a society look like without sports in it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on our social media platforms about that question. Maybe we'll ask it today. What does society look like without sports in it? Do you guys remember what happened in 2020? Just a quick poll question. Do you recall what happened in the year 2020? Yeah, COVID-19. An entire world that was, in fact, forced to live differently. No parties, no connections, no touching, no hospital visits, no normal work environments. Keep a safe distance. This many inches, this many feet, this many yards away. No shopping and eating in confined places. And no sports. That's what we were experiencing. And what happened? What was the reaction of the people in general to this? Chaos. I'm not saying we are supposed to retain order. I'm not implying that. I'm saying it was chaotic when the opportunities for these privileges were not available. Everything that was social was under the microscope. That year was like unlike any other in life. At the same time, during that time, for me personally, and for many folks that I know, I've heard them share with me, I've heard them discuss it in closed circles. Sports represented one of the few escapes that we had during that time. There were some limitations to how sports was done because of the pandemic, but that was one of the few ways that we had to. I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for you. You can share in the comment section if you have any thoughts about that, but that was one of the few ways that we had to have a release. Even your regularly scheduled sitcoms were preempted because people couldn't be in the same room together without fear of contaminating each other with a virus. So they were showing reruns instead of showing new episodes. They were closing down production, not only of television shows and sitcoms, but also in the cinema world, movies. They were shutting down production everywhere because of fear of even more widespread sickness, a pandemic. So in actuality, besides reading the book and going to the park with your kids, sports was all that we actually had. I don't mean to over dramatize it. I hope I'm not, but that's what I remember from 2020. That's what I recall. So it comes to mind for me. Sports was all that we had as a release. I needed some freedom from just getting past some stuff. I mean, experts have concluded that a society without sports will cause a rapid decline in mental health. I don't know if you agree with the experts, but I want to hear what you guys think. Experts say that a society without sports would lead to a rapid decline in mental health. What do you think that is? I know that without a society without sports would limit social interactions at a high level. That's for sure. Most of the biggest gatherings that we have on the earth has some connection to sports, whether it be at the sports bar or at somebody's house or on a ball field or in a parking lot tailgating. The big gatherings that we have in the whole world are usually revolving around sports, whether it be in soccer, with World Cup, whether it be in the World Baseball Classic, whether it be in football in the NFL. Tens of thousands of people in the fans, tens of thousands of people, tens of thousands of fans, in the arena. Those are some of the biggest gatherings that we have. I mean, I can see some of the experts' point, because a lot of the impulses and the hormones, they're at a heightened level when you're involved with sports or even watching sports. So I get that part. Not having that activity, that energy, it can lead to a decline. It happens to a lot of people in serious situations, in real life situations that I know about personally. So I get that, most of that. But I look at you guys' thoughts. Do you think that a society without sports would actually lead to a mental decline? Do you think that's feasible? I mean, there's studies out there that say that people who are living without sports or in a sports stoppage, like we were in 2020, become depressed, isolated, lonely, and longing for connection. Here's my question. Not to make you go back into a bad negative space or remind you of old stuff. Excuse me. But do you remember that 2020? Do you recall feeling or seeing somebody else have feelings of loneliness and isolation, being depressed, longing for connection? Did you see that? I'm not saying that sports is the reason why, but one of the biggest reasons why sports has values because of its ability to connect, like we were talking about earlier in the show. The connection aspect of sports is what makes it great. I had friends in the old neighborhood that I probably wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, but when sports was involved, we were able to connect. We were able to move past the idea of each other or the stigma about each other or the misconception about each other. And we were able to play a game together, unified as a team. Like I was saying earlier, I sat in sports bars and restaurants with huge big screen TVs and met folks from all manner of walks of life that I probably would have never have touched. Not because I'm antisocial, a little bit of an introvert, but the reason why it wouldn't happen is anybody's guess. But in that setting, it became easier. It became families connecting with each other, all rooting for the same team or rooting against each other, and still being able to connect. That was important. That was connection. That's what we missed in 2020. That's what was missing. And I don't know about you, but I saw people who were depressed, feeling isolation and experiencing deep loneliness and longing for connection. That's where the outcry came from. People almost lost their minds, went back crazy out here because I said to them they couldn't connect anymore. So tell me connection isn't important. I think it's valid that sports has that kind of impact. It did for me. I mean, without question at all. So I want to make sure that I emphasize that and share that aspect of my life, which is one of the main reasons why we're going to be having more sports on They Call Me Mr. U going forward. I'm going to have guests and some friends on to co-host with me. We're going to be talking more about sports and some of the nuances that we get a chance to talk about a lot. So I'm kind of geeking out about that, pretty excited about it. But let's go back to our first question. What does a society look like without sports in it? See, I know that for some reason, we seem to be more faithful to sports than we are to people. We wear their colors. We get tattoos. We are what they call a diehard, which is a very weird term when you think about it. We're a diehard sports fan. So in full text, we're a diehard sports fanatic. That's a title that we want to have at times. We seem proud of that. Diehard sports fanatic. I invite you to define those words. Get a dictionary, look them up. It might change your perspective just a little tiny, maybe, if you're open-minded. I'm not saying I don't love sports, but just think about it. It's something to consider. But what I think is valued here is that we can love sports, but not allow sports to change us to the point where we are unrecognizable. See, I'm never going to have headdresses on and go to a stadium bare chested with numbers painted on my chest. It's never going to happen. I don't view sports in that way. It's not that much of an escape for me where I do that. I don't like playing dress up, so that's already a strike against me anyway. Because playing dress up doesn't work for me. But I root for a team. I'll shout on the screen from time to time. But I get bent out of shape, to the point where my whole day is ruined because my team didn't win. I can't engage in arguments about why the world doesn't need sports. I just don't agree. I think we need it. I don't think it is the measuring stick for our entire life or how we should be from a character perspective, but we need it. We need it to make sure we don't forget to stay connected. We need it to make sure that we don't forget that somebody who doesn't agree with us can still be with us, if that makes sense. They may wear opposing colors, but they still are more alike than they are different. That playoff game at Ray J in Tampa, I didn't hate anybody that was wearing red and pewter. I laughed a lot at them because there was some crazy stuff that I knew wasn't going to happen. Garcia wasn't taking them to a Super Bowl, and I knew it. So I laughed at him, no question. But never disrespected him as a human. Never took my sports fandom to that point of no return. So why are we doing sports? Well, what they call me Mr. U was spiritual development, entrepreneurship. I was dealing with coaching. Now we're going to the realm of sports now. That's what it's become. I didn't realize when I first started the show that it was my responsibility to provide information. I thought I was just sharing some things, but I didn't realize, and today I kind of feel as though I needed to get back on track with some things. So I'm happy to be in this spot. Not comfortable, but I'm happy to be here. Now I'm sharing a little bit of myself. The show is called They Call Me Mr. U. I didn't give myself that name. People saw me in a certain way, and they saw things about me that they liked, didn't like, whatever. But the show is about the things that I've learned, the things that I've grown through, the things that I am excited and passionate about, and the things that I don't really care for that much. I want to see some things change in our world. Sports is a big part of that. Sports isn't perfect. I mean, you can look at sports and find what you can find anywhere: sexism, racism, drug use, and every other vice. You can also find community building, capacity building, the ability to make friends that last a lifetime. You can find that through sports. My goal is to share most of what I love with a different twists. So that's what's coming. That's what you're going to be seeing soon. So wherever you are today, have you listened to They Call Me Mr. U, the podcast? Thank you again for making us a small part of your morning, your day, and your week. We're your weekly mirror check before you go change the world. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and the Twitter. Thanks again for joining us on our live first episode. So excited. More to come. Will you be helping us? Will you be joining us? Certainly hope so. Have a great day. Coach out.